begin today with the question of how far is too far in standing up for one's principles. Congresswoman Maxine Waters caused a firestorm this past weekend by urging folks to surround, push back against, and, quote, absolutely harass President Trump's cabinet members. Mr. Trump accusing her of calling for harm to his supporters in a tweet. Ms. Waters, whose rhetoric has been criticized even by some in her own party, including Senator Chuck Schumer, now accusing the president of misrepresenting her remarks. Here's what she said to Chris Hayes last night. Listen.
I did not call for harm for anybody. The president lied again. As a matter of fact, the president calls for more violence than anybody else. Let's focus on the children. That's what this is all about. It is about the fact that children have been snatched from their parents' arms. This president will try to do everything to divert our attention. His violent statement, so I'll quote, I'd like to punch him in the face. Another violent statement, knock the crap out of them. Another one, maybe he should have been roughed up. And then he goes on to say, try not to hurt him, but if you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry about it.
Joining me now this morning to discuss this and other headlines making the rounds today, NBC's Craig Melvin, NBC News political analyst Elise Jordan, and New York Times investigative reporter and NBC News contributor Megan Twohey. Great to have you all here today. So, can I tell you, to me, this now feels like a nuclear arms race, where it's like, who started it? Who's going to up the ante more? President Trump tweeting out to Maxine Waters saying, be careful what you wish for. Right? He's clearly saying, if you want to go there, we can go there. And she's kind of saying, you already went there. I'm joining your party. However we got here, is this where we want to be?
No, I think we can all agree on that.
No, we can't.
No?
We can't. Because yesterday we had a discussion here where some were saying, no, you got to get in there. You got to fight. This is the way it's got to be. Fight fire with fire.
I don't think that's the solution.
I think it's a different time right now because there is the issue of children being separated from their parents. And I think that there's so much anger about that. And the terms of the debate have changed somewhat in that the government is not telling us where these children are, where they're being housed, how they're going to be reunited with the parents. And I think that that has escalated the debate outside of the realm of norms of civility.
So does that make it okay to...
I don't think it makes it okay. And I think that the emphasis has to be on nonviolent. If people want to protest, great.
No, but
keep it nonviolent.
Right now, no one's calling for violence specifically, although President Trump thinks Maxine Waters is. And you could make the argument, certainly you could make the argument, as the Washington Post did in an op-ed yesterday, that Maxine Waters' rhetoric could foreseeably result in violence. When you're saying surround them at the gas station, get in their face, push back, and absolutely harass them. I mean, if that happens and somebody gets hurt, is she really going to be able to say, I'm shocked. I had no idea. I didn't want that.
Right. But I think that it's also important to point out that this does go back to the presidential race in 2016, that Trump himself was the one who was, in many ways, elected by riling up his crowd and saying, lock her up.
Yep.
Yeah, he said, lock her up.
And
at that time, you had, Michelle Obama going out and, with the famous, like, when they go low, we go high. And I think since then, there has been a lot of growing frustration on the left and in the Democratic Party that they're not served well by basically just having him go out and use this type of incendiary language, the lock her up. They don't
know how to handle that.
Exactly.
It's like, how do you fight back against that?
Right.
I think is a question a lot of people are asking. Even the Republicans who were up against him in the primaries wondered about that.
I do think, though, that it is a bit ironic that some of the same people now who are screaming about civility and, my God, how did we get here, and the lack of decorum in public discourse, it's like the people who set the house on fire are concerned that there are flames shooting from the house.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
it's a very, but I just, you're right, because even if the words now aren't deliberately designed to stoke violence, one of my concerns is that, someone's going to go out there and do something crazy, and they will then sort of lean on, well, this person said this. And so we've got to figure out how to ratchet it down.
We saw that happen, speaking of Trump's rhetoric at the rallies, right, when he said punch him in the face. Then we saw somebody do that.
Right.
That's exactly what we saw. But here's my question for you. There's a piece by conservative columnist James Robbins in the USA Today. And his point is this is a good way to reelect Trump. And what he's saying, he gave a couple of examples about some of the rhetoric we're hearing from Trump's critics. Robert De Niro, F Trump. Wanda Sykes, an F-bomb at Ivanka. Samantha Bee called Ivanka a feckless C-word. Kathy Griffin, the severed head. She called Melania a complicit piece of you-know-what. Peter Fonda, what he said about Barron Trump, ought to be locked in a cage with pedophiles. He apologized for it, but he said it on Twitter. A Canadian TV writer came out and said, don't worry, we're coming for Chloe, too. That's Donald Trump Jr.'s 4-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the Stephen Miller, the architect of the immigration policy that's so controversial, had protesters outside of his home last night, and not to mention Sarah Huckabee Sanders getting not served at the restaurant, which is what started this most. So his point is that inspirational?
As a political strategy, it's a complete gift to Donald Trump.
Right.
That does not help the Democrats to make their case and to keep the conversation where it should be, which it should be on the child separation policy and the unanswered questions that the Trump administration will not give the American public about where these children are and how they're going to be reunited with their family. Civility is just a political gift to Donald Trump.
I think that's right. I mean, I think that you're looking at two questions here out of this particular moment. You're looking at the question, the genuinely scary question of potential violence that can come out of all of this rhetoric. And then you are looking at the political question and whether or not this is going to serve the Democrats well or harm them. And I think you have divisions in the Democratic Party. I think that there are people who would say, actually, no, like enough is enough. It's important for us, like especially younger Democrats and non-white Democrats, that there's a sense that, no, actually you need to step out and basically give voice to the rage that people are feeling and call out Trump and what he's doing on these policies and basically take it to another level of discourse. And then there are people who say the more establishment Republicans, David Axelrod, Nancy Pelosi, who are saying, whoa, 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 calm down. This is actually not going to serve us well. And we saw this actually, one of my colleagues at the Times was out last week talking to Trump voters and strategists and pollsters. And you know what he found over and over again is that when people attack Trump and his administration, that these Republican voters feel like they're protective of him.
Oh yeah, it plays right into Trump's hands. It plays right into Trump's hands.
The poll last week, he's the most popular Republican president among Republicans since George W. Bush in the wake of 9/11. A lot of folks don't realize that.
He's got over 90% approval rating right now amongst Republicans.
It would be nice, though. The president had this rally last night in West Columbia, down in Lexington, South Carolina. It would have been nice if that had been used as an opportunity to acknowledge some of the heated rhetoric on both sides and use that opportunity to dial it back.
Are you familiar with President Trump at all?
Well, that's why I said
he is not the king of the dial it back. He is the king of the dial it up.
Right. But, it would have been nice.
Here's the thing that concerns me. Okay, there was a piece in The New Yorker by Adam Gopnik, and he wrote about Sarah Huckabee Sanders being not served at that restaurant. He wrote, "You cannot spit in the plates and then demand your dinner. The best way to receive civility at night is to not assault it all day long." Okay, so that's his point about her. But the question is, does the shoe go on the other foot there, right? Because you tell me whether the Democrats, and to Maxine Waters' point of surround them, absolutely harass them because you don't agree with the person they support, where's that going to go? Ruth Bader Ginsburg is going to go to the gas station, and it's okay now for the Republicans to surround her and absolutely harass her. We're going to go to the home of Elena Kagan, judges who have upheld abortion rights, and shout them down if you're on the right because you're pro-life, and say, you're terrible, you support this. What would the left do if that started happening? You cannot fight. My own position is the same as it was yesterday and the day before that and the year before that and at the presidential debate with Donald Trump years ago. You cannot demand civility by being uncivil. You cannot. You see the moral high ground.
I think the moral high ground was ceded when they have enacted this horrible policy.
I'm talking about the Democrats.
I know.
I'm talking about the Democrats.
But I'm saying that
the Democrats can't criticize this policy as inhumane and all these things by threatening Barron Trump.
No, they should not be. I'm not saying that we should not be civil, but I'm saying the anger, the underlying root cause is over this policy, and that is the reason for the escalation.
It's so much more than this policy. This is the catalyst as of this week, but the deep-seated anger toward President Trump has been building for a long time, and I'm not arguing with the well-founded nature of that, and there's many reasons to be mad at him. The question is, what do you do with it? How do you channel it? And how do you affect change? Listen, we have to pick it up after the break.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.